Season 2, Episode 6. The Truth Has a Ring to It.
Welcome to Starting Now, a Barry podcast, presented by Cinemasins.
Hello, everybody. This is Starting Now, the Barry podcast. I'm Chris Atkinson with Barrett Scher.
Yo!
And with Mike Hester.
Hey, everybody.
I don't know where that yo came from.
I don't know. That was.
Yeah.
I think less of you now.
Reached in for it.
I don't think I can go through with this episode anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wait another week.
All right, thanks, everybody. That was the Starting Now
That's
podcast.
right.
There you go.
That's right. Episode 6 of Season 2. Starts off with a sort I guess one of those sort of cold open type of things where you have the detective that's left over now is the one played by Sarah Burns. And the wife, Loach's wife, are in the quinceanera store. And they are looking for the laptop that Loach was using. Obviously, I guess Loach's laptop has all the stuff on Barry on it. And she's an awful detective. I love the actress.
Yes.
I love this actress. But Detective May is basically like, oh, where would he keep the laptop? And then she's like hitting on Loach's ex-wife almost.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's like, so you want to go get a beer or something like that?
Yeah.
You want to go to my softball practice? And she's like, no.
Yeah. And this is the first time we've seen her on screen. I mentioned that in a previous episode that I think we had just seen like a photograph or like a quick shot or something.
It's one of those like photoshopped looking things where
Yeah.
they're like on a beach or something. She says, also May says something to the effect of like, we're going to look for one of those groups where your ex-husband kills your boyfriend. And it's like, if there's not one, there should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just awful. Once they leave, we see something get kicked out from one of this pile of stuff that's on the left side of the screen. And Barry has gone in there and has gotten the laptop. And he's still got the blood goatee.
He's hiding between the dresses.
Yeah. We now cut over to, after the Barry title, we cut to him and Fuchs in a park.
Do you think we see May again? Sorry to interrupt.
I think so.
I think so.
I mean, it further demonstrates the incompetency of the LAPD.
Yeah.
And the fact that she looks in, presumably, the drawers in the desk, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
She doesn't like poke around anywhere. It's a small ass store. It's
It
not
is.
like it would
and
take.
there is a human inside.
Yeah.
right next to
Yeah.
it.
With the blood.
The question I guess they have to ask themselves for the third season is she going to be the one that's in charge during this, and I guess we don't want to go too much into spoilers, but by the end of this season, there's like a sort of a new beginning thing happening. Do we want her to be the one? And they may just continue to make her sidekick material and then have somebody else that gets promoted. And, by this point, we might get somebody like, some big star to play that next detective.
It's possible. She is, like you said, she is hilarious. I think she's a comedian.
Yeah, she is.
She's hilarious and casually hilarious. Like all that stuff could have been improv or something like that, and may have been. But I hope we do.
I hope we do too.
Yeah.
I like her.
Yeah, I definitely like her a lot. So we go to Barry and Fuchs in a park. They've bought some supplies and everything, and like we said in the last episode, everything about that stabbed in the back and super glued his back together, and
They went to Target and took care of everything. It's
took
fine.
care of everything.
Yeah, and even Fuchs' stuff, like he's got the super glue off his hands and everything. He's all patched up on his cheek.
Yep, and
It's $30.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Fuchs is like, hey, let's go get some pancakes. And Barry he's like, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. And Fuchs is like, what did I do? Name one thing that I did. He goes, you wore a wire. And then, and in classic Fuchs, he's like, I wore a what?
Like what?
I wore a what? And he's like, and Barry's like, come on, man, you know what you did. And then Fuchs has definitely gotten to this, like, he's definitely planned out like a whole bunch of stuff now that he knows that Barry's been training the Chechens.
Yeah.
They know that it's about this heroin stash that's going on at the monastery. He knows all of this is going on, and he's like, who else is going to get this heroin for you if it's not me and whatever. And he's like, man, Fuchs, this just proves you don't know anything about me. I don't even give a shit about that, And then Fuchs, he's like, Mr. Cousineau gets me. Mr. Cousineau is the one who gets me and everything. And Fuchs thinks for a second and goes, because first he's like, you told him about Korengal, right? And he's like, yeah, I told him about Korengal. And then he thinks about it and he goes, what did you tell him about Detective Moss?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that huge guilt trip that he usually probably works.
Mm-hmm.
But Barry's like, no, I didn't, and he doesn't need to know about that. And you're out of moves, by the way, and because he doesn't think that there's any way that Fuchs is going to find the body or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, he does. It's another thing that Barry self-sabotages himself, because I think he pushes him. And so by saying you're out of moves, you're pushing this guy to say, like, I'm going to figure out a way to undercut you.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for spite. But ultimately, I think that you're going to come back to me. And by doing that, he's forcing his hand, basically.
And also, why does he have to bring up Cousineau? He doesn't need to.
Know.
He's breaking up with this. He is in this habit, and we saw this a lot in episode 5. Where he is telling Fuchs too much.
Mm-hmm.
He is just used to telling Fuchs everything, and he's not out of that habit. And here he talks about Cousineau. Cousineau understands me and all of that. God, you don't tell Fuchs that.
Well, and you're not, and not only at this point, it's not just the fact that Fuchs might be dedicated to finding Detective Moss and all that. I mean, what if there was nobody? Now you've put a target on Cousineau's back.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. I mean, it could be that simple. He could go to Hank. Not that Hank would do this to Barry, but he doesn't know that. Fuchs could go to Hank and be like, let's take Cousineau out, or at least capture him and force Barry's hand, and he'll basically do whatever we want.
Exactly. So Barry's naivete is just off the charts. Mm-hmm. On this thing.
At what point do the cops go back to the room again, the TV room, where we saw in the first season where they're saying, we got Ryan Madison, we know what all happened, and they're totally wrong. And they come to this, and they show that picture of Loach, which is the saddest, dumpiest picture ever.
Yes.
Next to the picture of Ronnie, and who just looks awesome.
Yeah, it's a headshot.
It's his IMDb picture. The actual actor.
It's awesome.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like 2-time Olympic champion.
Yeah, somebody in the press pool is that 2-time Olympic champion.
Yes. Those interactions are great.
And they're like, so you can see what happened.
Yeah, he's like Loach.
Yeah,
Loach. This guy was dating Loach's ex-wife. So yeah, you can see what happened. Like, everything's tied up.
Everything is there
in a neat little bow.
2-time Olympic champion Ron Price. Somebody knows the Taekwondo gold medal.
Yes, exactly.
And the funny thing is, for the most part, they get it right. When all the other times I've gotten it totally wrong. They understand Loach enough to get it right, but of course they have missed the whole Barry part. So
yeah. The main crux of this episode is that everybody's trying to come up with that story that defines them in the acting class, and we start off with Sasha, who tells this is so fantastic. Sasha tells this story about how she looked out a window once and saw a horse
in London.
End scene.
That defines her.
That and Cousin. There's even a page. Everybody turns a page, and there's nothing left. And there's two ways to interpret this. One, that Sasha is definitely half-assing this project and intended to do more, but didn't.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, and if you listen to everybody else's story, the one guy's got his dad was replaced by aliens. The other person is smothered her twin in the womb. Yeah. You realize that these people, yes, they're bad actors, but they also don't have any life experience whatsoever.
And they don't have any self-awareness of it either.
Yeah.
Because maybe this horse moment for Sasha was something important. Like, that's the first thing that she's thought of. But she doesn't go any deeper than that. It's literally what is right in front of my eyes.
And it's the stuff that she says after, because Cousineau's like, is that it? He's like, well, I saw a horse in London, in a big city. I didn't grow up on a farm like you lot. And
in rural areas.
In rural areas, yeah. And then so everybody claps and goes, no, don't clap, don't clap. Now it's like you're now it doesn't count or whatever. And they said something like, well, we didn't know it was the end of the. We didn't know it was the end of.
Know.
Yeah. And she goes, well, you may not have known what the end of it was, but you knew how important that horse was to me. And it's you just sit there like, God, man, these people just have no experience. They don't. I mean, and we see that from all the stuff that they do outside of class too. Mm-hmm. You have the two roommates that Barry has are playing video games every single time we see them.
Yeah.
If it's not that, they're probably at bars and stuff.
That's the only place that we see them.
Yeah. They're not doing anything with their lives.
And Sasha's at Lululemon, and that's about it, right?
Yeah, you got to think there are a lot of people like this in Hollywood that are just delusional.
Mm-hmm.
You see it
they don't want to put any of the work in. They go to one class, they come home and eat Doritos, smoke weed, and fucking play video games.
And they don't have any talent, but they don't realize it. And they don't have any drive. If they had any drive, they might at least make the room or something. But they don't have it.
Exactly.
There's a stand-up thing that you guys should look up from David Cross, and I think it was back in 2002 that he did this, where he talks about how delusional people are who go to Hollywood, thinking that he's like I know there's people out there who like they grow up in like Wichita Falls or whatever, and they were so good in Brigadoon, and then they go to Hollywood thinking they're going to be a star, and they go straight there, and and I don't want to go through the whole thing, but like he talks about how they go there, and then what? They're not good enough. They're just not good enough, and then they just stay there, and then after a while they become those people on the sidewalk who are dressed up as Batman and crap around, and it's what these actors are essentially. I mean, it's just another thing for them to do. They don't really take it seriously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's evidence for Sasha half-assing her script, right? It's just like, well, I think that's probably good enough, and then she goes off to do something else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sally has now made some changes to her abusive boyfriend story.
Yeah.
We see her on the steps like we saw her in the first episode. Barry goes over to her and she says, I don't even know if I can do this. I can barely say this stuff to you. I would much less going on stage and saying this stuff. And she's like, I made some changes. And he's like, yeah, I can see that. Mm-hmm. And the changes now is that she's no longer telling the boyfriend off and leaving. She's telling what the truth is, which is, after he yells at me, I feel bad, and then I wait for the apology.
Yeah.
And the apology is what love is to me.
I love that line.
Yeah.
God, I wait for the apology.
Well, we were talking about the trauma and abuse, like after effects, especially when Sam came back into the picture. The character paints, and the creators paint such an honest portrait of the toll of an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. No other show's going to go there. Like, even though it's a play within a show, no other show is going to reference that sort of trauma and that sort of response to it. Mm-hmm. And so by putting it as part of her story, but on stage, it's just such an interesting, like it's like seeing something through a refractory lens or something like that. You still see the actual object, but it's skewed a little bit. right? And maybe it takes a little bit of the hit out of it until we see it at the very end.
Yeah.
I really honestly thought they go in there and they do the scene, right? That's the next thing that happens, and it's powerful, and everyone's kind of dumbstruck, and she takes it as a negative reaction, but it's not. I personally watched that scene and felt like I had a better idea of what a relationship like that is like. Just taking that in a totally off level. It was such a powerful moment that I feel like I have a better idea of what an abusive relationship is like. Maybe I'm naive because this is a really sensitive, touchy subject, but man, that was something.
I think for sure this is, and we have Emily Heller writing this this episode, so we have a woman's perspective. So I believe this is sort of the classic type of signs of this type of relationship is that what you define love as is different from what people in healthy relationships define it. And then for her, it's he's doing this because he loves me. And then when he gets done with that and he says his apology, I just want to get back to where it was. And we go through this cycle, and she knows it's going to happen again, but the idea that the apology will come later is what drives it.
There's one line in there. Oh, maybe you already said it, that I've never felt more loved than in that moment.
Oh, I didn't say that. No.
Yeah. Do you remember this? That's a gut punch right there. That she almost craves. She knows what's going to come after the abuse, and she will feel this tremendous amount of love, and that's why the cycle does get repeated. Man, what fucking show is going to go there and create this sort of picture for a bunch of people like us that don't really have firsthand experience with that?
It doesn't keep it black and white at all, because even a character like Sam, who awful character, but he does have that humanity to him, where he does legitimately feel bad.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah. Right.
God.
Yep.
Yeah. That's hard.
When everybody stares blank faced at her after this, she leaves and she's in front of the mirror and everything. Barry goes to smooth it over and try to smooth it over and say, he says exactly what happened. They weren't ready for you to say that. That's why they were sitting there like that. It wasn't because they thought it sucked. Or they didn't find it truthful. It's just that they did not expect it. And so now what he says is, we're going to get this scene right. And it shows how, what have you done for me lately happens in these type of things. Remember, he was awesome in that Macbeth thing, and that's the reason why they're back together in the first place. But ever since then, he's probably been phoning in performances like he always has. He's not getting to any particular level and everything. We've seen the genesis of this scene where he couldn't even get to the point where he could even say the lines. Now he can say the lines, but he says them mechanically. He's not even getting into any kind of an emotional thing. And when he says, we're going to get this scene right, she's like, you and me are going to get this scene right. She doesn't believe in him anymore.
She's back to being on her own bullshit. She's in her own head, and in her own head, there's no way for Barry to get to that place when we know that he has.
Yeah. But now Barry realizes, I probably haven't been giving this all of my all. And so he goes to Cousineau and he says, I really want to put all of my effort into Sam, and I don't want to do my scene anymore. Right. And of course Cousineau is like, I don't blame you. He's like, you killed somebody and got away with it. And
he ends up saying that like 4 times.
Yeah, he does.
Imagine how many times he said it before, because Barry says it back to him at the same time.
There are a lot of, this is of course, it's an emotionally wrenching episode with Sally stuff, but there is also some of the funniest stuff that I've laughed out loud at in this episode. Cousineau says, I will always be there for you, Barry, as long as we can get out of here in 7 minutes. And
he looks at his watch and you're like, well, maybe by like 4:00 or 30 minutes. 7 minutes.
And so there is a great scene between Cousineau and Barry at this point, where Cousineau is in full, I'm committed to making you a good actor here, when you're thinking about that scene in Afghanistan and how, and this horrible thing that you did, you're not becoming that person. You're using it to inform this character.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it was the first season, one of those episodes, you can actually watch these class scenes and like maybe even turn into a good actor.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you would have to actually immerse yourself, but like there's some actual good lessons in these things.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are not, because I think I said something earlier to where he's learning how to be a human through acting when it should be the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. And so he thinks that to get to that place, he has to become that human again.
Yes.
And this is the moment where I think it clicks.
Finally.
And Gene like convinces him to rewind it basically and take it the other way.
You want to be,
this one he is human.
You want to be thinking about that, but not become that, and just inform that into how you speak and everything. We're not hurting anybody. We're pretending. And that's what you need to learn about this, is finding a way to make pretending look real. And then Kusano leaves. He's like, I am so late for my escape room.
What a great line.
Oh, my God.
It's a tiny little thing. Tiny. He could have done anything at that point.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But he does right before that say, I'm really glad you told me this story, which is meaningful and kind of a rare moment for Gene to say something like that, to say something real like that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It is. And also we get this is the worst thing that you've ever done. He's like, this is definitely the worst thing
and
I've
he's
ever
like,
done.
thank God.
Yeah, because Sam is a violent man and you are not.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, no, like everything gets kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Like not as far as us, the audience, watching the thing, but like just knowing what Barry is thinking during all this stuff. It's like, oh my God, that hits so hard. We have some parallel things going on. So Barry is also finishing up his training with the Chechens in this episode. Mm-hmm. And they're looking competent.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing all those drills behind them and everything where they're taking weapons.
Yeah, and there's a point where like, they're doing the kick and the take the gun and all that, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty good. And NoHo Hank is like, oh, it's about to go off. It's about to go off. And then there's like all the Chechens like do this dance or the circular dance around him, jumping up and down. There's like 2 rings of it.
And he's just
standing there while Hank jumps up and down in front of him. Hey. And there's a guy doing a backflip.
Yep.
And then Hank gives him this like pin, and he's like, our debt is paid and all this great stuff. And an accordion player comes up and starts. And this is one of my favorite NoHo Hank things too. He's like, oh, fucking seriously?
This is all-timer.
Yeah. He's like, you come in, it was a great moment, and you take the fucking accordion over here. It's like, hey man, this was a great moment, and you fucked it. The delivery on "fucked it" is so awesome.
Yeah,
I just love it.
Whipped out your accordion and you fucked that moment.
Yeah.
I did actually watch the behind this, the after thing after this, and because I noticed not only at this point that Bill Hader's looking, away from the camera, and it's almost like again in the Cable Guy where Matthew Broderick is laughing at Jim Carrey in the chicken skin scene and all that. And I was like, is he laughing? And then when he gets to the car, like he's kind of like smiling and all that stuff. And it turns out like he was laughing too hard to actually. He's trying not to ruin the take by like turning his head.
Yeah, that's not the only time they've had to do that sort of thing with when NoHo Hank is going off. They talked about like having to do some sound after effects when they were up there on the roof trying to kill him. Yeah, and all that a couple episodes ago. So
that's right.
Yeah.
This is classic.
It sounds like so much fun.
And it sets up because the accordion player is playing during that whole ring scene and all that. But then it sets up what is a silly throwaway joke turns out to be important to not only the rest of the episode but the rest of the season.
Yeah. Before Barry leaves, Meyerbeck comes up to him and tells him how much he means to him and everything. And Barry doesn't know how to take it at first. At first, I think he's like, whatever. But then once the guy says, I finally have a purpose with my life and everything, I have a purpose, you can see a smile on Barry's face as he gets in the car. He's like, I've never been revered before.
Yeah. He's never really done a good thing.
He may be conflicted. He may be conflicted about
it. Yeah.
But he's a good actor. The kid that plays Meyerbeck is a really good actor. He's got some good scenes in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Barry drives off, going, you just see that tiny bit of a smile. Yeah, he waves.
Uh-huh.
He waves as there's like a whole bunch of them waving at him in his rear view and everything. Meanwhile, we have Fuchs on his quest to find Moss's body.
There's so much going on in this episode, by the way.
Yeah, a ton.
This is completely aside from what the episode is probably telling me or anything, but I got this weird sense of calm and peacefulness as Fuchs went up to that dock, and he has that satchel on his back, and he's got the water, and he's like, I don't have anything to do today other than walk around this area and look for the body of Detective Moss. There's something, it's ridiculous because his actions are nefarious and everything, but there's something about like that when we first see him walk up to the dock, I was like, man, I want to be looking for something out in the woods, just walking around in the woods and whatever today,
It is nice they set it up like that, but the way it plays in the episode, they switch and they show that the lake house for the first time since episode 8, and my blood kind of went cold. It's like, oh.
Is that the first time they've shown it?
I think that's the first time they've shown it since, and it just gave me goosebumps. It's like, oh, dang.
Yeah,
and then Fuchs is walking around all like,
he's in that tactical gear and all
that.
Yeah. It is funny because as it unfolds, it shows his obsession. Like, he's not just out for a stroll and then when it gets dark, like he's going to come back and then go back the next day. He's singularly focused because this is the way that he's chosen to undercut Barry.
Yeah, yeah.
I love they go and he finds the tire tracks, and you first think, oh, he's onto something. He's walking down. First of all, how did the cops not?
Yeah, that's my first thought. I was like, what the fuck, dude?
We talked about that in that first episode. It really, like, they really just completely just decided we're not going to look for her at all.
Mm-hmm. And then at that point, they cut away. This episode is all over the place. And they come back a couple of minutes later, and he is walking back, and he's back to the start where the tire tracks first start. And then you realize he doesn't know what he's doing.
No,
he has no clue.
He almost looks like a gold prospector with that hat on, like, and he's like, he's making all these sounds like, oh, there you are. Oh.
And then he's camped out outside with like a tent he can't put up or something crazy.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah, he's just like huddled.
He's like just huddled, and they're like animal noises, and he's like crying.
He's like ah, ah. Yeah. And there's a point where he falls like a huge, like long hill. He falls and hits this ditch, and he finds this sewer pipe, and then
God, he literally just falls ass backwards in the things.
Yeah.
It's almost again, he's come out and found something.
Yeah, it's almost like the show wants to put the character Fuchs through physical pain as much as possible because he gets his ass
a punching
beat,
bag.
He gets his tooth filed.
He gets bit.
He gets bit. He gets all kinds of shit. And now that falling scene. It's like Homer, like on the side of the thing where he keeps going and going and going.
It was reminiscent of me because Bill Hader's also in that movie Hot Rod.
Oh, yeah.
And Hot Rod has a big, long falling scene, although it's way more exaggerated and ridiculous than this is. But that it reminded me of that. So, yeah, he's on that quest. And now Barry is armed with this knowledge that he needs to go back into character when he does this scene. He's on stage and he again is kind of doing it mechanically again. He's back to his old self. He's sort of forgotten about all this. It might be a little bit better than what the reading has been and everything, but it's still not there. And Sally is not responding to it and everything. And he gets about half, like a quarter of the way into it, and he's like, can I reset? And this is when he goes back, and he goes to the Afghanistan, the Korengal thing, Detective Moss thing, all of that. And then when he turns and he's like, who's that guy you were dancing with? It's completely different. And Cousineau, who's half asleep, is like, whoa, wait a minute. He may have gotten to this spot. He may have gotten to this place that he needs to go.
It's really interesting that he only wants to do the Korengal thing. That's what Gene has put into his head. That's what he's trying to use, and he can't help but have Janet Moss pop into there. She is in his head, and he turns around and he tries to do it again, and she comes in again into that. And yes, it gets him into the moment, but Janice is still haunting him.
What's really crazy is that we see the shots go into her torso, but we don't see her face.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and she's dead. He killed her. But they keep holding back like the ultimate reveal of seeing her in full getting killed.
I don't think they're ready to just do that. Like I think they wanted to leave it the door slightly open in case in season 3 they needed to bring her back.
Yeah. And you see the bullets go in maybe not life-threatening areas and stuff like that. But anyway, the act of whatever he does gets him all the way into rage zone.
Mm-hmm.
And man, fucking Bill Hader, god damn it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Once he gets into that, he's all in on Sam, and he starts saying the stuff right. He's not only saying it with emotion, but he's reacting to how she's reacting, and it's making it a whole like beautiful music thing.
He's adding stuff to it, like different lines of dialogue, and throwing the
table.
He
even throws the table, but there's another great thing too is when he's like, "Who is that guy?" And instead of waiting completely for the line to come out, which is the real mechanical way of acting, she is in the middle of an argument. Yeah. So like when he says, "Who's that guy?" and he's still speaking. He's like, "I never met that." He's like, "You met him before." Like in the middle of what he's saying, that's real acting there. That's like not, because it's easy when you're novice at that type of thing that I have my line. They need to shut up while I do my line.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then I will do my line right after that, and then they will do theirs. This one is an actual argument that's going on here. And they do this scene beautifully, and Sally is back on the Barry train.
Yeah. Boy, when they do the choking scene, like they do the whole thing mechanical where they put the arm hand in the hand to block it, but then he's really choking her. That's what I got out of that. That think? She is actually I mean, it's enough that he is in a dangerous, angry place. He's not he's using that thing, but he's kind of not acting. He is in a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a little crazy, and he actually grabs her neck, and I feel like when she falls down, she has like a deeper breath than you would expect. There's a little bit of real choking there that works great for the scene.
Yeah, it could be half and half. I know that I didn't get that from the scene, mainly because of the mechanical nature of it. He puts his arm out and his hand outstretched, and then she walks into
pause.
And that's why I don't get the idea that he's actually doing any choking, but could be half and half.
She makes it look like it for sure.
Yeah. And she's this scene goes beautifully. And she's back on like, oh yeah, Barry's my partner in crime on this and everything. The agent just happens to be there when she does this scene, and Lindsay's like, is this what you've been turning auditions down for? And she's like, yeah, and she's like, well, this is really good. And there's this sort of this germ of an idea that this is the thing that she needs to be pursuing, is this writing and acting thing and everything. What's her name?
Natalie.
Natalie comes up and is like, "I'm sorry, you can't audit this class for free and all that." And he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm Lindsay. I'm her agent from Gersh." And she goes, "Enchanté."
It's hilarious. Sally's been blowing off all these auditions, presumably decent ones, when she worked all this time to get an agent and like some sort of representation, and now she's so focused on this.
But for that audition, she was going to be Benicio del Toro's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Again, she was just going to be the wife or the secretary or whatever small sidekick role.
Lindsay over the end of the line says it's Benicio del Toro's wife, so I'm assuming she drinks.
Yeah.
Period.
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like, is that a dig at Benicio del Toro from Bill Hader?
Yeah, or is it a dig at wives who people played his wives before?
I kind of took it like this is a one-dimensional character. She's a wife who drinks. That's the whole character.
Yeah,
which is not what she wants.
So we leave that scene to Fuchs actually finally making a breakthrough. He finds the car, and you're like, oh shit! Now he's found the car, and it's got like little branches on it again.
Little branches.
Yeah.
With all that
not
trouble, like you'd think that he would.
You think he would at least go back or something and do something more thorough or move the body or something? I don't know. Maybe you just hadn't thought about it.
I mean, he does this in the span of how long are they asleep? Maybe like 5-6 hours or something like that. He has the conversation with Moss, presumably kills her, drags her body to the car, then hides the car, and he's back before Sally wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
Back and showered before she wakes up. So like, it's almost like he did all that circumventing and stuff like that to get the car parked, and maybe he didn't have enough time to cover it up, successfully. But you're right. Why didn't he go back and finish the job?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know. Maybe he's just not a good enough planner for that. Maybe that's Fuchs role normally.
True. That's very Barry.
And more along the lines of is Detective Moss possibly still alive and everything. Remember, when he made that confession when Loach was in the hotel and everything, Barry is talking to Fuchs, and Barry might have actually lied or at least thought that she was dead or whatever when he said, when I killed Moss. So we have this idea that because he admitted it, then that she must be dead. But he also thought that Ronnie Proxon was dead too, and told him that he was dead.
Yes.
So they have left that door ajar. And even as you get through the end of the season, that door is still ajar.
I know, and it's fascinating because she's totally dead. Like every sign points to her being dead.
Yeah.
And maybe just to like subvert our expectations, maybe she actually is dead.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're not completing the story is very cool, I think.
Like I said, I think they're trying to keep it open, because if they're in the writer's room for season 3 and they come up with a revelation, that's what they want to be able to come back to that. And they don't want to say, yeah, she's completely dead, because then that shuts off like potential creative avenues later on.
Especially how great that character and that actress is too.
Yeah. The final scene is Cousineau in that restaurant where he had his first date with Moss. And he's even got an extra wine glass out for, and he orders the chicken a la king. And
knows the waiter by the first name, so he's been there
a lot.
Yeah.
And tells the waiter, like, will you take that glass away? And I guess most of the time he just leaves it there.
Yeah.
And probably just walks away. But now he's getting to the point of the acceptance phase.
Yeah.
And so like that wine glass gets taken away. We move back and we see that Fuchs is in the restaurant too, in another booth. And he's like, I'll have what that guy's having. And that's how we end that episode.
Yeah. And the only other chunk that we didn't cover is the Hank stuff.
Well, let's get to that. So Hank is ready to take on these Burmese. What, the hat?
He puts on the beret. He looks in the fucking mirror and
checks his teeth.
And he's telling one of his guys like to make sure that they have their shoestrings tied.
It'd be fucking embarrassing.
It's not only professional or whatever, but it's not professional, but it's also embarrassing or whatever. Run into Esther. And this is just the perfect cartoony reveal.
Yes, it is.
Cristobal comes up from behind Esther, and then accordion guy still holding the accordion.
Yes.
He's like, accordion guy, ratted us out. And so now Hank and all of his guys are like, are captured. And
the way that's another classic Anthony Kerrigan line where he's like, oh, he calls him by his name. He's like, the fucking accordion player sold us out.
Yeah.
And he's with the guy that's still injured from Barry's shooting him and everything.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah. So that ends that part of the Hank story, and we will see where that leads in the next episode. All right. Anything else that we need to say about this?
I think that's it. I think we covered a whole lot happening in that episode.
Well, rewatching it, I was like, hold on, how are they going to have time to get to this? Because I knew what was being set up. I was like, holy, because it's only still like 37 minutes or something like that.
I was thinking, watching this episode as it ended, I was like, this still has to happen. 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 There's like all these different things, and it's going to be fit in the last two episodes.
But none of it feels rushed to me. This episode didn't feel rushed to me, even though there's a zillion different plot points going on. I think we had time for that detour with Ronnie Lilly, and I think it's perfectly paced.
Yeah,
we'll get to it, but in some of the later episodes, I thought maybe there are a couple things rushed.
Are you rushing or are you dragging? That's a whiplash. You need to watch more movies, Mike.
Yeah, well, I don't. I like TV shows. I watch a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Nobody watches as many movies as you guys do. My God.
That's very, very true. Yeah. There are movies that I watched last week I've already forgotten.
Me too.
Okay, well, that'll do it for this episode. Where can people come find us, Barrett?
Go to Twitter. At Now Starting is our official Twitter handle. You can also go to at Music Video Sins, where I'm parked. I have a fancy new logo for Pride Month, by the way. And you can go to SoundCloud and comment there. Let us know what you think about this episode, and let us think what you think about our interpretation of this episode.
Yeah. Okay, well, that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Barrett Sheeran, Mike Hester. We'll see you next time.
I seriously can listen to that on repeat.